Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, let me at the very outset thank you for giving me this time. I would like to be brief, keeping in mind the fact that many of the honorable members of this August House are going to participate in this budget discussion. It's a healthy trend, and we have to also remind ourselves that this is the last budget of this government, and by 2023, beginning of the year, we will have election. So it's a very important budget for all of us and for the state as a whole. And it is also important for all the members of this August House that we are able to look at integrating our concerns appropriately in a manner that we are able to draw the attention of the government for getting things corrected and to get the positive response of the government in that regard. So I think I would request through you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, that enough time be given to all the members, and so that keeping in mind the importance of this budget, we are able to articulate things appropriately. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, every budget, when we embark upon preparing the budget, it's one of the most difficult jobs for any finance minister, and therefore, it's easier said than done that we tend to live up to our own expectations, in sync with the expectations of the people. But resources have always been constrained. Therefore, it is important for the government of the day, or for that matter, for any government, to see that resources are looked at in appropriate manner. And when we look at the resources, meaning the receipts, both for the revenue and capital expenditure, we are able to somehow or other ensure that we keep the fiscal health of the state in the condition that we keep the credit rating of the state at a very comfortable stage. I would like to share before this August House that when we were working on various programs, particularly to amplify the resources of the state's own resources, rather, of the state, and see how various important initiatives can be embarked upon in a manner that help us to generate the kind of momentum of development in the state and the kind of growth thereof. We had to look at how to locate the sources, and we always have been privileged as one of the states of the northeastern part of the country, that most of the government of India sponsor schemes we used to have 90:10, 75:25, with a major chunk of the fund coming from government of India. And we also used to have quite a number of programs which used to come in the form of grant in aid from government as a special plan assistance, etc., etc. Subsequently, things changed, and therefore we had to keep pace with the whole trend of the whole change of funding and financing various developmental programs of the state, and therefore the inherent challenges which comes along with them. And the most important thing that the government embarked upon was that we looked at the spaces available for fund from externally aided projects. Now, we are very happy that the state has been able to leverage upon all the programs that is being, all the programs that was available before the states under the sovereign loan from various international financial institutions. We started with ADB, World Bank, then JICA, and subsequently we broadened our scope of locating the fund, keeping in mind what are those areas or sectors which were compatible to be funded by those programs. And there is one area which has helped the state. That's why even in last budget session, when I tried to articulate things, I have urged upon the government, the Chief Minister in particular, that please look at those areas of sources of fund which can be considered as the low-hanging fruit. Because these are the areas where you have substantial quantum of assistance which comes almost as grant. The repayment part Of course, the repayment part was revised by Government of India subsequently. Earlier it was 90s to 10. But subsequently, after 2014-15, the Government of India revised it, so the quantum of refund to be given by the state has increased. Nevertheless, these are the programs which have enabled us to create some kind of visible impact in the whole field of development. I was looking at the implementation of those programs which were still in the process of implementation. Now one is in the education sector, the human capital development. Then others are on the road sector in the World Bank funded, which also includes the PMGSY and other programs like MITP, through which we are taking up number of that inter-district, interstate, inter-district capital roads and state highways. So upgrading the roads. Substantial amount of fund is available under the government, but a word of caution, or rather my concern was that the funds were not really taken advantage of to spend in such a way that these developmental programs would have been visible already by now. Say MITP. The target given for the government was that by 31st December 2019 should have been at least 1,000 crore, but we delayed. So this delay has deprived us of the time, advantage of the time. So I would like to urge upon the government of the day. I would like to urge upon the Chief Minister that please look at these important areas of funding and see that we don't lose time, and therefore we amplify our possibilities of getting further funding from these various financial institutions. Now similarly in the human capital development, I looked at the whole kitty of fund which was still available for other components of the work other than the construction of the infrastructure for 117 schools. One is the skilling of the youth. 60,000 youth were targeted to be covered. Till now it has not been completed. So these are areas which will enable us to actually further go for further such funding under EAP. Otherwise what happens is that we deprive ourselves from further getting considered for further scheme that we would like to implement under this kind of externally aided programs. Now, when we refer to this kind of resources, why I'm saying that is because otherwise what happens is that most of our funding had to be most of the capital expenditure that we are talking about. Now, if we look at the budget, we are looking at the complete kitty of fund which is available for capital expenditure is just 3,505. Okay. Now, out of these, almost 1,000 crore will be for repayment of the loans. And again, if you look at quite a substantial number of schemes which is funded by the government, like Jal Jeevan Mission, the projected expenditure for the current year is almost 2,000 crore. Yes. If 2,000 crore is only for Jal Jeevan, then what is the actual amount left for other programs? Therefore, what I'm trying to say is that that's why it is important for the state government to look at the sources of funding so that our burden on borrowing from the open market is reduced as much as possible. Now, I would like to share a very important aspect of how we managed to actually be one of the most preferred states for availing this loan under EAP. If you recollect, in 2011, when Government of India signed with World Bank for funding all the PMGSY roads, out of the 8 states of Northeast, only Meghalaya was considered because our credit rating was good. Our credit rating was good. Now, how did we manage to maintain that credit rating? There are many other states which use, sources of states' own revenue, but their credit ratings were much more lower. Therefore, we were preferred. And we were preferred because we maintained our debt is to GSDP ratio at a very healthy figure. We have always tried to bring it down below 30%, that debt is to GSDP ratio. And because of that credit rating, we were preferred. And out of the northeastern states, only Meghalaya was considered amongst the 7 states which were part of the agreement. So therefore, through you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I would like to again reassert my contention that the government should look at these areas of sources of fund and to enable the state to avail this kind of fund in the years to come. We have to take care of our borrowing, and we have to also ensure that our credit rating is maintained at such a level that we remain preferred states. Otherwise, we will have serious problem. Now, if you're looking at the liabilities of the state government based on the borrowings.
Honorable Law, may I request you to shorten your speech because the time allotted to each member is 10 minutes. Anyway, I will give you 2 more minutes.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in the submission that I made, I said this is the last budget of this government.
Yes, of course.
And therefore, it's also incumbent upon all of us to understand that how the BAC actually took a decision. We said that the budget discussion should be at least given enough days. But the contention of the state government in the BAC, government is represented by the Deputy CM in charge of parliamentary affairs. So the idea was that, okay, we reduce the day, but then we extend the time. So this is the background of the decision of the BAC. So please allow the MLAs substantial amount of time so that we are able to articulate things in an appropriate manner. Now, I would like to wind up by being brief in few points, which is very crucial for all of us. Now, therefore, I would like to suggest that the borrowing part must be always looked at with substantial amount of caution. Now here, the borrowing that has increased over the years, the cumulative borrowing from the open market is almost 12,000 crore. Almost 12,000 crore. Therefore, look at the earlier, during our time, the borrowing was just around 4,000 plus from open market. That's why it's with a certain amount of caution that government must move when we embark upon borrowing to fund our capital expenditure. Now, here when we look at the sectoral allocation, I would like to get a very rather a clarification to have an insight into the projected fund in regard to the grant number 3, where the discretionary grant by ministers is projected at 59 crores 21 lakh 60,000 at page 19 of your budget 22-23. And when I went through this whole thing, we see that the grant in aid in general, the discretionary grant included Chief Minister Special Grant 39 crores and Chief Minister Special Development Fund 20 crore. I think we used to have at least a communication from the CM Secretariat about the CM Special Rural Development Fund and the urban counterpart. I have not received any intimation so far. So I'd like to urge upon the Chief Minister, through you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, that we should be intimated about the quantum of allocation per constituency so that we are able to program our investment accordingly. Then another part is that the MHIS part in the health sector. MHIS has been designed in order to ensure that the whole quality healthcare delivery system in the state becomes sustainable. Even the most of the advanced nation, the most economically advanced nations like United States of America and other advanced, well-progressed nations are grappling to find answers as to how to sustain their healthcare policy. Now, MHIS somehow or other, even after the people are covered by the MHIS, they still have to pay. Now, we have to understand one thing, that the uniformity and parity of the cost of healthcare by the hospitals has to be rationalized. In absence of that, what happens is that the patient party don't know. With MHIS smart card, when they go and get their patients admitted, they still have to have own money. And the actual cost of treatment differs from hospital to hospital, and the gap is huge. This is because there has been no rationalization. About all the cost of the treatment, there has to be an advanced negotiation, discussion, and agreed cost of treatment for all the treatment which are covered under MHIs. This is very crucial to ensure that there is a sustainability. And important thing is that the state hospitals should take advantage of these MHIs, because the fund which is reimbursed by the insurance company goes back to the hospital. That means the hospitals actually, by default, start treating on payment, which comes through the reimbursement of the insurance. So that is how it has been designed. And this money goes to the health management, to the respective hospitals, and also for the manpower who attend to such healthcare facilities. And this is how we have been able to design and say that, yes, that is the reason why we say it is a sustainable mode of health delivery system. Please get it corrected, otherwise it will become unsustainable and will be very difficult to further implement MHIs in the years to come. Another part is in the education, in the health. And we also say that we should have maternity and child hospital in every district capital. Every district capital. And in those areas where we have high incidence of maternal mortality rate and high incidence of infant mortality rate. And every civil hospitals, for that matter, must have the facility of blood bank. Many of these preventable loss of life in respect to maternal and infant mortality rate is because of this huge gap. This is understood by all of us, so I think there should be a special reallocation of fund and let these things be considered as one of the priority. Now, when we are looking at education, but I would like to only say that, okay, people's colleges, initially it was supposed to be community college, the name has changed, doesn't matter. But the concept behind is very important. The original concept was to ensure that every community college is self-sustaining and doesn't suffer from the usual dislocation of posting of the teachers. This is what is the most crucial aspect, because Tura Government College, what is the usual problem? The problem that the Students' Union will always bring before the government is that there are too many vacancies of teachers because of the frequent transfer to other government schools in order to be posted closer to their respective homes. So there was a concept, original concept of community college where, the post is attached to the community college. It is not transferable. So that anybody who applies to any of the community colleges, now named as People's College, they will know that they are going to remain in that college forever. Otherwise, the sense of belongingness doesn't happen.
Honorable
Dislocation.
I would like to know how many minutes more would you like
I will just embark upon only education and little bit of
how many minutes more
yes, well, that's all, Mr. Speaker. Then on the question of the teachers' training and other things, it is also there under the human capital development. They should be judiciously utilized and effectively put in the process of implementation. Then another part is that science and commerce colleges, which was funded by Government of India. There is a need to expedite these things and ensure that the benefit of this whole intent of getting and establishing these institutions, science and commerce college, must be considered as one of the priority. Then engineering colleges, I would like to urge upon the government to at least start the engineering colleges from the immediate next academic session. Also, the medical colleges, I think we have too long, delayed things. This is time when we should pull up our shocks and take care of the aspirations of our youth. Hundreds and hundreds of youth who would like to become medical professionals, they are getting deprived because we don't have seats. So therefore, this is one thing. We have seen how our students have to go outside the nation, outside the country to really pursue such courses of studies. Then another important thing, which was an offshoot of exercise in this August House, the technical university, Meghalaya Technical University. Please ensure that it starts functioning. During our time, we have already appointed the Vice Chancellor. Then indicated the location also, the infrastructure also, which could have been used. So let me urge the government, through you, Mr. Speaker, sir, that have a review on this technical university and ensure that it starts operationalizing. Another important thing which I would like to share before this August House is that in respect of important investment through MGNREGs. Now, what has happened in the past is that we always used to have certain amount of balance to be paid, but particularly for the material component. And this time what has happened is that for consecutive 2-3 years, there is a pending bill, unlike in the past. Earlier, we always used to have some pending, but we provided some corpus fund so that this can be done good by advanced utilization of those funds out of the corpus fund. So maybe the state government can just have some more relook at that corpus fund, increase that fund, and then ensure that the small entrepreneurs who are supplying the material component in respective blocks do not get deprived of their payment on time and ultimately get affected adversely because their entrepreneurship, whole drive to become entrepreneurship get slowly affected and they die down. Because it's a question of understanding that with little amount of resources, they are trying to be an entrepreneur and supplying the material to the respective blocks. So please understand the agony and the kind of dislocation of their livelihood if their little amount of balance payments are not met on time. Another part is that PMGSY. We can recollect one aspect, that the first phase, the phase 1 of PMGSY funded by the World Bank, we had quite a substantial number of these roads which were sanctioned in Samanda block, in Songsak block, and under Rongjeng block, under Resu block, under Chokpot block, under Rongara block. Projects are not yet completed because there were an inherent problem in respect to implementation. Because of the problem pertaining to the terrorism and insurgency, please remember that GNLA was still active at that time. So many of the contractors abandoned the work due to the law and order situation. And in the process, what has happened, there is an time overdone and cost overdone. Now, how do we regularize it and ensure that the time overdone and cost overrun is taken care of and the schemes are put on track again so that we complete the projects? Please have a review on these projects which are pending for completion because of this lack of funding or lack of, there is a problem because when there is an escalation, for the revamping of the work, there has to be retender. Retender after retender, no contractors are coming. That means there is a problem. So kindly have a look at this program, particularly under these few blocks which I have said, because these are the areas where we have too many villages which are not connected by the all-weather road. Then only on few things, now that we have the blocks.
Please take a seat. Please take a seat. Please take a seat. It is now 2 p.m. In exercise of the Rule 11 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business of this August House, I will extend the sitting of the House till all the business listed for today are being disposed of. You may continue, but kindly wind up, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Now, one important part is that things have changed. Aspirations of the people obviously have. Therefore, banks, every funding, every payment are made by bank. So some of our honorable members have also dwelt upon this. Number of banks have to be established, whether it is from the State Bank of India or Rural Bank of India or our own cooperative apex banks. So I would like to urge upon the government to take a priority on this and have a review and ensure that all the banks actually take care of the need to have new branches across the state. People are forced to stand on the sun, on the rain, for hours together. The people with, disabilities and our senior citizens. So please take care of this, and then we have to probably have repeated meeting with these banks and get it done. Then another one is the post office. Most of the areas where we have the post office are all the post office which were there 20 years back. New post office is required. Then another part is that State Disaster Response Fund, 74.8 crore has been indicated. Very painful to see that every year when the people are victim of natural calamity, they do not get the needed support as per the rules, as per the guidelines on time. Schools, many of the schools, hundreds of schools which are damaged due to natural calamity are still lying like that. Therefore, please aggregate the fund available from Department of Education and also from State Disaster Response Fund and see that all those schools which are dilapidated condition and are because of the natural calamity be taken cognizance of and repairing be done immediately. We have seen that the state has embarked upon reconstructing of the new LP schools, but I am talking about even renovation. Even renovation with 2-3 lakhs per school is going to help us. Forget about that 40 lakhs. We don't need that 40 lakhs because of not having enough school buildings which are already in dilapidated condition. Classes cannot be held. This is a fact. This is a reality. So with these few words, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to again urge upon the government to look at all the available resources of fund to take care of all the needs of the people, all the needs of the state.
Thank you.
And also to take care of the issue of developmental disparity and developmental gaps. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, sir, I resume my seat.
Thank you.